Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. Today from Hasbro in their Marvel Legends series, we are featuring the 2-pack King in Black with Knull and Venom. Alright, so my memory's kind of foggy on this one, but King of Black was an event in the Marvel Comics, and I want to say that was the story when Knull, the Lord of the Symbiotes, and he had that symbiote army, and they were descending upon, I think it was New York, and all the superheroes had to rise up and take them on. And I think that was a story where they introduced Eddie Brock's son. I might be completely wrong on that though, because I sometimes get all the symbiote stories kind of mixed up. When I first saw this 2-pack, for a second I thought this was like going back to that really old Guardians of the Galaxy story, when Eddie Brock, no, not Eddie Brock, it was Flash Thompson was with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they made a trip, I think, to like the symbiote home world. So all the weird symbiote stories, they all kind of blur together for me. Alright, so we have Knull, the Lord, King, God of the symbiotes, and then we have Venom, looking awesome, especially with these cool giant bat wings. Here's an image from the comic on the sides. Nice up-close portrait of the figure. And on the back, here's what you're getting. Knull comes with his sword and an alternate head. Venom comes with an alternate head, a pair of fists, and then these giant wings. So I'm not sure if I ever posted the video yet, but I did a review on a knockoff figure of Venom. And the knockoff was this figure here, but it was based off of the Sonyverse version of the character, and included the giant wings. But the figure was a complete knockoff. You know, it looks like a Marvel Legends, but the minute you handle it, you just feel that it's completely off. So for me right now, it's kind of cool to handle the real deal in hand. If I didn't say it at the beginning of the video, this is an older set that came out back in 2022. And chances are you could probably find this on Amazon. That's where I got it. Or if you hunt around on Facebook Marketplace or eBay, you should be able to find it there. Alright, this is sick, this Venom figure. And we'll talk about this figure in a little bit, but yeah, it's awesome. This is really cool. This is a figure that I believe is the Sonyverse live-action Venom figure from years ago that was a Walgreens exclusive. And it was most recently, so today is May 26, 2025. And then last year, they released that Venom figure, which was a re-release of the Walgreens one that came with the tendrils that he snapped onto the back. But this was actually the first time they used that body, because this one has the wing attachments. But yeah, this is cool because it's essentially the Sony figure, but you know, colored up to look like the comic book, which is awesome. I'm really stoked on that. Here is an alternate head for Venom and also alternate hands. And then we'll take a look at that in a little bit also. We have the alternate portrait for Knull right here. And then we have the King in Black. We have Knull, the Lord, the God, the King of the Symbiotes. We have Knull's sword, which looks sick. This is a crazy looking weapon. It looks like something out of like a video game like Devil May Cry or like Elden Ring or something. And then we have the wings here for Venom. And looks like these require assembly. I gotta take a look at the box first to see how. There's no clear instructions. So you kind of just have to look at the box and try to figure out how it goes together. So let me assemble the wings first. Alright, so here's the attachment point that goes to the back. Oh, okay, that makes sense, alright. Oh, that's so cool. So the knockoff figure that I had, the wings weren't articulated. They were just flat. But the legit product here has articulated wings, which is nice. Okay. Alright, for some people, I could easily see this being the end-all, be-all of the Venom action figures because it's really, really something else. This is a spectacular action figure. Alright, so we'll start with Knull first because there's more meat on the bone with Venom. So we'll talk about Knull. So here's Knull, the Lord, the God, the King of the Symbiotes. You know, a completely evil and nefarious character. His appearance, he's almost like very vampire Dracula-like, especially with like the very white pale flesh, the long hair. You know, this is easily like a character that would appear maybe like in the video game Castlevania. The stock head is the crazy head. It's the one with he's bearing his fangs and his teeth. It looks ridiculous. The one thing that always bothered me with the Knull character is so that on the symbiote planet, you know, sitting atop his throne is Knull, and here he is. But it always kind of baffled me as to like why he had like the Venom symbol on his chest, and it's almost the same thing except it kind of has that tail underneath. Because I always kind of viewed it as, you know, this is originally Spider-Man's logo for the black costume. But then again, the original black costume was a symbiote, so who knows? Maybe it was this. I don't know. But yeah, this always kind of bothered me that his symbol was actually this one right here. It should have been something a little bit more alien, but I guess if you want to draw the character back to Venom, it only makes sense. Crazy looking head. He has the red pupils, the blacked out eyes, the wild looking teeth. His hair is kind of windswept. The armor is nice. It has like kind of like small little dents in it to give it that appearance of it being battle damaged. A lot of bandages on his arms. His skirt's kind of torn with a nice micro texture on it. Love the leg armor. I'm not sure if it's armor. That just might be his leg muscles. Yeah, it looks cool. Very, very cool figure. Also a very tall one. Knull stands in at about 8¼ inches. And don't forget, the character did have a cameo in the last Venom film. You know, very briefly they showed him on the symbiote homeworld. Here he is next to the Marvel Legends Vulcan, and I can't get these to focus. There you go. Much taller than the average Marvel figure. His sword, again, it's very ridiculous. It looks like something out of like Devil May Cry or Elden Ring. It's like covered in the symbiote ooze, and then the red ooze kind of reminds me of Carnage, Venom's rival symbiote nemesis. And then this easily fits into his right hand. great looking figure. Knull is a beast. This guy is awesome. Examining his articulation up close, his head looks left and right, looks down, looks up. The nice thing with his arms, as you can see, the pauldron is attached separately from the torso, and it can spin around with the arm. The arm goes outward, swivels at the bicep. Clean design for the pinless elbows, which is double jointed, articulated wrists. Swivels at the waist. There is an ab crunch underneath the body armor. Waist swivel, legs kick up, but they're kind of restricted by the skirt piece. But fortunately, the skirt piece does have a slit on the side, so it does allow... It's still a kind of, hard to flex, but at least it's there, so you can kind of like kick the legs upward or outward. Pinless, designed for the double jointed knees and articulated ankles. Overall, a great figure. If you happen to collect Venom, Carnage, and any of the symbiotes, I kind of feel like you need this 2-pack in your collection, just because of the Knull character. He's kind of like the alpha of the symbiotes, and he's like a must get. You need this guy. Up next, we have Venom. So the cool thing about this Venom, like I stated earlier, is that I believe this is originally the Walgreens exclusive figure, which I have on hand. But so this is not the original Walgreens figure. This was the re-release that came out last year to coincide with Venom: The Last Dance. This belonged to the Marvel Legends Venom: Let There Be Carnage, a wave. It's essentially the original Walgreens figure with the added addition of these 2 sockets in the back, which allows you to plug it into tendrils. But in this case, they reused this. Right, so this figure came first before this one, and these sockets were originally used for the wings. But the cool thing with this figure, which came out a few years before this one, is that it's colored up to look like the comic book Venom. So if you always wondered what the movie Venom would have looked like with the Venom logo, this is the figure. The head's a little bit more comic book inspired. You can see it's larger, especially with the bigger jaw and mandible. But yeah, this is a awesome figure. It doesn't have that size like some of the Build-A-Figure Venoms, but the overall presentation is just beautiful. It's a really standout piece. And it looks just so cool next to the Sonyverse Venom. You can kind of see if they made a couple of subtle changes to the Sony one that it could have easily looked like the comic book. If it just had the larger eye lenses and the proper decorative elements on the body. So we have Venom here. He stands in at about 7 3/4 inches. Here he is next to Vulcan again. Vulcan here in every video. And then here it is next to Knull. The Venom's articulations is as follows. His head moves left and right. Doesn't really look up or down all that well. This kind of nods. His arms are articulated on a ratchet, nice and tight and snug. They go upward. Bicep cut. Double jointed elbows. Articulated wrists. Diaphragm cut. Does not swivel at the waist. Legs kick up pretty high. Thigh cut. A double pinned knees and articulated ankles. And then here is the alternate head, as I showed you earlier, without the tongue. Anytime they give me the option with Venom with the tongue or without, I always opt with the tongue. It looks more sick. It kind of embodies the character better. And then you also get the alternate hand options, which is a pair of fists. And the big selling point also with this figure is the articulated wings. So if you want to give him crazy bat wings, the wings are articulated. You can fold them in and out to make them spread out further. And then they plug into the back. I'm not going to plug these in all the way because I have a feeling that once they're in, I might not be able to get them out. So, at the very least, let's see if I can bend it. All right, bend it. Yeah, so they're articulated here. They do move. It's a stiff joint, unfortunately. But yeah, you do have the option if you want to display it with the wings. And keep in mind, you know, the wingspan is really wide. So if you have limited room in your display, you might opt to like pose him without the wings or display him without the wings, because as you can see, they just take up a lot of space. They look amazing though, and they are articulated. So there's different ways you could pose them. You know, once they're in, you can rotate them up and down. You could kind of open and close them so they're more spread out. But yeah, it's amazing figure. One of my favorite Venom figures in years. I did like the Sonyverse version of the figure, or Sonyverse version of the character. But it always just felt off because it wasn't the Venom that I grew up with. You know, this is Venom. He needs the giant, crazy emblem on his body. And this one, it just felt so naked without it. But it's cool that, you know, we're getting this body, but with the comic book look. All right, so with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.